Welcome you all to the course Database Management System. Myself, Muhammad Asifuddin Mondol, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Narula Institute of Technology. And this is lecture number 31, covers chapter 7 of Transaction Management System. During my lecture, I am going to cover these following topics. First, I will cover the different states of transaction. Then I will discuss about how to implement the concept of atomicity property and durability property of transaction. Then I will cover the concurrent execution of transaction in a system, and then I will give an idea about schedules. So let's start with the different state of transaction. Now different state of transaction means when a transaction start is execution, then transaction go through different kind of states, starting from initial state to end of a transaction. A particular transaction go through a several kind of states, and these states are going to be covered here. Now the first, when the transaction begin his execution or just start his execution, then it is in active state. That means active state is basically the initial state of every transaction. Then partially committed state means after the final statement has been executed. Means once the final statement of the transaction has been executed by the CPU, then we term that transaction as a partially committed transaction. That means all the statements have been executed, then final statement or the last statement of that transaction is also be successfully executed, then transaction move to the partially committed state. Now in real life, now not every transaction are able to complete this execution successfully. Some transactions are there, those fail to execute successfully. They fail at intermediate point of time. Now we have already discussed why a transaction failed in my last lecture. The transaction may be failed due to hardware failure, maybe software failure, maybe system crash, or maybe due to power failure. So it may be any kind of reason for which a transaction may fail. So ultimate point is that not every transaction is able to complete its execution successfully. Then such transaction are termed as failed transaction, and then at that point of time the corresponding transaction move to the failed state. Next, before going to discuss the next state, which is aborted state, I have to term something that already we know that atomicity property. And what it says, that atomicity property says that either all the instruction of a transaction are reflected in the database or none at all. So this is the atomicity property. Now if a particular transaction failed, then what happened? To ensure the atomicity property, and then a failed transaction must have no effect on the state of the database. Thus, any changes that an failed transaction made to the database must be undone. And once the changes caused by a failed transaction have been undone, we say that the transaction has been rolled back, and then the transaction moved to the aborted state. Let me again clarify the thing. So if a transaction failed, what happened? At an intermediate point of time, if some transaction failed, what happened? Some instruction, due to successful execution of some instruction, it may update some portion of the database. Now as per atomicity property, either it must affect all the database or neither at all. So if partially it reflect the database, partially if it has changed the database, to ensure the atomicity property, what we have to do? The failed transaction, whatever it has made changes to the database, must have to be undone. So once the changes caused by a failed transaction have been undone, we say that transaction has been rolled back. So that means rollback means once the transaction has failed and the database state, the databases are rolled back, means database state are retained as if it was before the execution of the transaction, then it is known as rollback, and then the transaction is moved to the aborted state. So aborted state means, let me write it. So aborted means, I am writing in short, so aborted transaction, I am writing in short AB. Aborted transaction means failed transaction, failed to complete its execution, and plus once the transaction failed, we have to roll back the operation of failed transaction, ROLL, roll back. Now again I am clarifying what is rollback. Let me clarify it. So failed plus rollback as a combine is known as aborted transaction, means if a transaction failed to complete its execution and then we have to roll back, then we termed it as a aborted transaction. And rollback means once the transaction failed to complete its execution, if the database state restores to the previous state before transaction execution, it is termed as rollback. So as a combine, it is termed as aborted state. Now once the transaction is aborted, now we have two options after it has been aborted. The options are, first we can restart the transaction again. Only we can restart the transaction if no internal logical errors are there. If the transaction is aborted due to maybe power failure, then once the power has come, then we can restart our transaction from beginning. And the other option is kill the transaction, means we have to kill the transaction manually. And when we need to kill the transaction, if due to some internal logical error of the transaction has failed, for that reason we cannot restart. What we have to do, we have to rectify whatever the internal logics are there. We have to rectify all the logical error of the transaction. Once logical error are sorted out, then we can again restart our process. And then the next stage is committed state. Committed state means once all the statement or all the instruction of a transaction are executed successfully, as well as all the information are copied back to the hard disks from the RAM, and all the updation has been done, all the changes has been done permanently in the database, then we termed it as a committed state, or we can say that transaction moved to the committed state. Now again we are going to discuss all these things in greater details. We then diagram an example also in the next slide. So these are the transaction state shown graphically, and these are the example. Suppose transaction Ti starts execution. Suppose at that point of time transaction Ti starts the execution. When transaction start his execution, what happened? The transaction, this is the program logic, basically it's stored in the hard disks. The whole when Ti initiated, what happened? The total instruction will be moved from hard disk to the RAM, and that point of time transaction begin execution, and at that point of time transaction is in active state. Now from active state transaction begin execution means CPU starts executing the instruction, one by one, and from here on, if all the instruction 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So all the 6 instruction, if executed successfully, then transaction move to partially committed state. Next, committed state. To discuss about the committed state, I have to draw a diagram here. Let me draw it. Again, same thing I have to draw. Suppose this is, suppose this is the hard disk. If you remember, I have already discussed in the first lecture of transaction, in the previous lecture. Suppose this is A, this is database B. Suppose it has $100. Suppose it has $200. So as you know, read A means, so this is RAM. So read A means A will be copied to the RAM. So 100 will be over here. Then A equal to A minus 50 means it becomes 50. Write A means write it back over here. Then again read B. Now let me draw the B. So this is B. It is 200. B is equal to B plus 50 means it will be updated, so it becomes 250. And write B means, then write B means it will write back to the hard disk. Now the very interesting point here is that, again, already active means once the transaction start execution, transaction stored in the RAM start execution, it's all the instructions are executed by CPU. At that point of time, transaction is in active state. Now CPU execute instruction one by one. When all the instructions are executed successfully, then it is moved to the partially committed. Now the term, if you look at it, is termed as partially committed, not committed. Partially committed means the job is half done at that point of time. Partially committed means all the instructions are executed successfully. But again, why we termed it as partially committed? Because for this instruction, write A, write B. Now what is write A? Write A means copied the value of A from RAM to hard disk. Write B means copy back the content of B to the hard disk. And copying this type of copying the content from database of a RAM to the hard disk is also termed as paging. Paging means once you are copying means writing, then bit by bit data is copied from RAM to hard disk, and this is also termed as concept of paging. And this kind of writing or paging is not performed at one go, it takes a bit of time. So what happened, during, so all the instructions, though all the instructions are executed successfully, but paging, it may happen that paging is not completed. Paging is not completed means actually paging is performed by the operating system, OS. Let me draw it. Paging means is nothing but writing back the content from RAM to hard disk. So this paging is done by the operating system. Now thing is that though all the instructions are completed is execution successfully, but it may happen that operating system has not completed his job of paging, means the data of the database which is updated. So these databases, the content of A and B may not be completed his paging, means A and B are not updated in the hard disk. So this job is done by the operating system. It takes a time. So during that time, during that paging time, if power failure occurs, so during paging time means writing back time in the hard disk, if power failure occurs, then what happens? Operating system will not be able to copy the content of AB from RAM to hard disk. So at that point of time, what will happen? It will be termed as failed state. Again, I am repeating, even though all the instruction of a transaction are executed successfully, but still transaction may fail. Why? Because paging is not completed at that point of time. Paging means writing back the content of RAM to the hard disk. This this job is performed by the operating system. Now, once all the instructions are executed successfully, but then if the power failure occurs, and due to power failure, operating system may not able to complete the paging job or copying job to the hard disk, then what happen? Transaction will be moved to the failed state. And when we term this committed state, once all the instruction of a transaction are executed successfully, as well as operating system perform all the paging operation, means operating system perform the copying the content of A from RAM to hard disk, as well as operating system able to complete the copying job, copying the content of B from RAM to hard disk, means all the paging activity is completed by the operating system, then we termed it as a committed. So committed means all the instruction of a transaction should be completed successfully, as well as all the paging operation done by the operating system has also been done successfully, then transaction is considered to be in committed state. Now, failed state means from partially committed it may go to the failed state, or from active state it may also move to the failed state. Why? Already I have already discussed. Suppose first three instructions are executed successfully. Next, at that point of time, may power failure may occur, may system may crashes, or any other failure condition may happen. So rest of the part is not able to execute. Then also we termed it as a failed state. Now, from failed state, it is moved to the aborted state. When it moved to the aborted state, I have just explained it in my previous slide. Aborted state means once the transaction has failed, we need to restore the database. We need to restore the content of A and B to the previous state. Then we termed this aborted state. For example, this first three part has executed successfully. So it becomes 50, and I've written back over here 50 rupees. Paging is complete. 50 rupees has been updated. Now this part has not been executed. Power failure occurred. So what happened? Updation will not be performed over here. So there will be inconsistency. $50 is deducted. So to ensure the atomicity property, what we have to do? We have to roll back. Rollback means we have to restore the database to the previous state. So we have to restore the database A and B to the previous state. Now before transaction start execution, what was the state of A? A was 100. So again A will be assigned 100. B will be again assigned 200. So A and B, both the database will be restored to the previous state of the transaction. So before the transaction, whatever the state was there, after the failure of the transaction, database should be restored to that particular state. And this concept is known as rollback. And then we can say that transaction moved to the aborted state. So this is all about the transaction states. The next topic is how to implement the concept of atomicity and durability. Now there is a component known as recovery management component of a database system, which actually implements the concept of atomicity and durability property. Now recovery management component has several schemes. Now here I will going to cover only the shadow copy technique or the shadow database scheme. So here I will discuss only the shadow copy technique, it also known as shadow database scheme, by which recovery management component implement the atomicity and durability property. Now for shadow copy technique or the shadow database scheme, there are some assumptions are being made. The first assumption is that we have to assume that only one transaction is active at a point, means it disallows the concurrent execution. We have to assume that only one transaction is active at a point. Second, a pointer called DB pointer always points to the current consistent copy of the database, means a pointer, DB pointer termed as DB pointer, is there which points the current consistent database. It always copy the current consistent database copy, and all the updates are being made on a shadow copy of the database. Means when transaction start execution, now before updating any database, what the recovery management component has done is that it makes duplicate copy, it makes another copy of the same database in the hard disks, and from which from the actual copy it makes the another copy, and the actual copy here termed as the shadow copy, and in the duplicate copy all the updation is being made on the duplicate copy. The actual copy, which is termed as also shadow copy, is being intact. No updation has been done on shadow copy, so all the updation has been done on the duplicate copy. Now the DB pointer is made to point to the update shadow copy only after transaction uses partial commit and all update pages have been flushed to the disk. I will discuss it later in the next slide with a diagram. Let me move to the next slide. So this is the explanation with a diagram how shadow copy technique can be used to implement the atomicity and durability property. So this is the hard disk shadow copy technique in a hard disk. Now this is the old copy of the database, means before update. Before update means transactions start executing but no write operation has been yet done. So this is the old copy of the database, and DB pointer is a pointer, is nothing but a pointer which points the database copy. And once the transaction start executing the write operation, then what happens? Once it starts the write operation, now before writing into the old copy of the database, what the database management system has done is that it makes another copy of this database. So what happened? A new copy has been created by the DBMS, or the recovery management component. So that means now we have two copy of same database. This is the old copy of the database, and from that copy of database we have created another new copy of database, and these two copy are the same content. And here the old copy from where we have created another copy is termed as shadow copy. That means this is the shadow copy. So this is the shadow copy, and the thing is that all the updation, whatever the updation a transaction has been done, all the updation is going to be performed on here. So all the updation initially, definitely all the updation is going to be performed in the RAM, and from RAM it will be copied back to the hard disk. But here the content will be copied from RAM to here, new copy of the database. That means old copy or the original copy of the shadow copy remains intact. No alteration, no modification has been done yet. All the updation, all the modification has to be on new copy of the database, and the database pointer is pointing to that copy only, the new copy. Clear? And initially it was initially the database pointer was in the old copy database, old copy of the database. Now once the transaction perform the writing operation, all the writing operation is performed on the new copy of the database. old copy of the database remain intact, no modification has been done on the old copy, all the updation, all the modification has to be done on the new copy of the database. And the thing is that the database pointer, the DB pointer, is always pointing to the old copy of the database, not the new copy. Now, once the transaction executed successfully, all the instructions are executed successfully, and then next all the paging operation has been done by the operating system. That means transaction move to the committed state. Then what happens? The recovery management component will update the database pointer. Update means it will move the database pointer from old copy of database to new copy of the database. That means initially database pointer pointing to the old copy of the database. One transaction move to the committed state, database pointer now move to the new copy of the database, and then old copy of the database is going to be deleted by the system. So that copy is going to be deleted. That is why it is written to be deleted. Once database pointer pointed to the new version, updated version copy, then old version copy will be gets deleted by the system. Now let's check how atomicity property holds. If at any intermediate point of time, suppose first consider that transaction fails at any intermediate point of time. Now if the transaction fails at any time before database pointer, the DB pointer is updated, the old content, this is the old content, the old content of the database are not affected. Now we can abort the transaction by just deleting the new copy of the database once the transaction has been committed. But if the transaction has been committed, all the update that it performed are in the database pointed to by DB pointer. Thus, either all the update of the transaction are reflected or none of the effect are reflected. Again, let me clarify. If at any intermediate point of time, if transaction fails, means transaction has not committed, then what happened? Then we have to just, we need to merely delete the new copy of the database. Again, I am repeating, if any at any certain point of time, if in intermediate point of time, if the transaction failed to complete execution, then what we need to do, just we have to delete the new copy of the database. And if we delete the new copy of the database and the old copy was intact, no modification has been done on the old copy, so when we start our transaction again transaction will read the old copy of the database, and as if transaction has never executed. Now consider the concept of, or the issue of durability, how it implement. Suppose the system fails at any time before updated DB pointer is written to the disk, then when the system restart, then it will read the DB pointer and then it will see the original content of the database, and none of the effect of the transaction will be visible to the database. And next, suppose that the system fails after DB pointer has been updated on the disk. Before the pointer is updated, all the updated pages of the new copy of the database were written to the disk. We assume that once a file is written to the disk, its content will not be damaged even if there is a system failure. So when the system restarts, it will read the DB pointer and will thus see the content of the database after all update performed by the action. So that is how the shadow copy technique can be used to implement the concept of atomicity and durability property. But definitely this shadow copy technique is extremely inefficient, though it's very simple but inefficient. The better techniques are there, we will discuss in my next lecture. The next thing is concurrent execution. So normally what happens in a computer system, if a single transaction are executing, then there is no problem. But its execution of a single transaction at a given point of time, it leads to a misuse of the system. And not misuse, it's no resource will be utilized in efficient way for better system throughput, for better performance. We need to allow multiple transactions to run concurrently in a system. But a multiple transaction, when are uh, mm, executed simultaneously, then several problem may arises. Several problem like the system may be inconsistent state, deadlock may be happen. So different kind of issues are there, but we need to resolve all these things, because concurrent execution have several advantages over single execution transaction. Like the advantages are, it will increase the throughput or it will improve the throughput. Now what is throughput? Throughput means the number of transactions are executed in a given amount of time. So if the concurrent transaction, if the transaction are executed concurrently, then definitely throughput will be improved. And once that means multiple transaction, if a system allows multiple transactions to execute, then definitely throughput will be increased. And as the multiple transactions are executed concurrently, the CPU will not become idle. Why? Because a transaction, any kind of transaction, consists of basically two type of operation. One is input output activity and other is the CPU activity. So when a transaction are performing the input output activity, at that point of time CPU becomes idle. If a single transaction are executing in a system, when a transaction performing IO activity, that point of time CPU becomes idle. So CPU or the resource is not utilized in better way. So what happen, if we allow multiple transactions to execute, then what happen, once a particular transaction performing the input output activity, then CPU can switch to the other transaction and execute that other transaction. And again, once that transaction is performed the input output activity, then again CPU release the transaction and move to the other transaction also. That means CPU never becomes idle, always CPU is busy by executing the transaction. That is how we can improve the resource utilization. So we can improve the throughput, we can improve the resource utilization, and then it also reduce the waiting time. Waiting time means if the transactions are executed serially one after another, then what happen is that a short transaction may have to wait for a longer period of time for a longer transaction to complete its execution. So waiting time will be increased if a longer transaction is executing currently. But if we allow multiple transactions to execute concurrently in a system, then waiting time of the transaction definitely will be reduced. Also, it will reduce the average response time. The average time for a transaction to be completed after it has been submitted is known as average response time, and average response time is also be reduced if we allow the concurrent execution of the transaction. The next topic is concurrency control scheme. As I have mentioned, if we allow multiple transactions to execute concurrently in a system, then the operation of this multiple transaction may interleave in some undesirable way, which leads inconsistency, which may lead deadlock situation. So different kinds of issue may arise due for concurrent execution of the transaction. The concurrency control scheme or the concurrency control component is a component of database management system which ensure the isolation property. Means with the help of this concurrency control scheme, the concurrency control component achieve the isolation property. That is to control the interaction among the concurrent transaction so that we can prevent them from destroying the consistency of the database. And if you remember, the isolation property is that it ensures that the concurrent execution of transaction result in a system state that is equivalent to a system state that could have been obtained had this transaction executed one at a time in some order. So with the help of concurrency control scheme, we achieve actually isolation property. Next is schedules. Schedules is basically a sequence of instruction that indicated the chronological order in which the instruction of concurrent transaction are executed. Now, a schedule for a set of transaction must consist of all the instruction of those transactions. So, schedule is nothing but a chronological order to represent all the instruction of a transaction in a sequence. Now, two type of schedules are there: serial schedule and concurrent schedule. Now, serial schedule means in each serial schedule, it consists of sequence of instruction from various transactions where instruction belonging to one single transaction appear together in that schedule. I am repeating, each serial schedule consists of a sequence of instruction from various transactions where instruction belonging to one single transaction appear together in that schedule. Let me explain with an example. Suppose this is the problem. It states that let transaction T1 transfer $50 from account A to B, and another transaction T2 which transfer 10% of the balance from account A to B. That means we have two transactions. One transaction is termed as T1 which transfer $50 from A to B, and we have another transaction T2 which transfer 10% of the balance from A to B. And the following is the serial schedule. Serial schedule means once a particular transaction completes its total execution, then only other transactions start. So when a particular transaction completes its execution, then only the other transaction can start the execution. Here, as I have said, that the transaction is nothing but a program that consists of instruction which is executed by the CPU. CPU executes the instruction one by one. So what happened in that scenario? CPU first start with transaction T1 and then it start executing the transaction T1, and CPU execute the first instruction read A, then it execute A equal to A minus 50. That is how it execute all the instruction one by one, and at the end it execute write B, and then operating system will perform the paging operation, and then transaction T1 is completed. Once T1 completed, then CPU start executing the next transaction T2, and similarly CPU will execute all the instruction one by one, and then T2 will be completed. The thing is that the diagram here represents a serial schedule. Serial schedule means, the term says serial means the transaction will be executed serially, and in serial schedule, if you look at the diagram, then all the instruction of a particular transaction are appear together. These are the instruction of T1. All the instruction of T1 appear together in the same place. So CPU execute one transaction at a time. So this is known as serial schedule. The next is the concurrent schedule. Now, concurrent schedule means, as the name implies, the transactions are executing concurrently, whereas in serial schedule CPU execute the one transaction at a time. But here concurrent schedule, what happen means, if CPU executing multiple transactions simultaneously, then that condition or that scenario can be represented with the help of concurrent schedule. And if CPU executing one transaction at a time, then that scenario can be represented with the help of serial schedule. Suppose two transactions T1 and T2 are the transaction, and T1 and T2 are executed by CPU concurrently or parallelly. Then that means if the T1 and T2 both are executed by the CPU simultaneously, then that scenario have to be represented with the help of concurrent schedule, and this is the concurrent schedule. So if you look at the diagram, T1, this is T2. At first if you look at the diagram, you can see that these are the first 3 instruction belongs to T1. That means we can say that CPU first start executing transaction T1. Suppose at the time of T1 time, at the time of T1, CPU start executing the transaction T1. And then once 3 instruction belongs to T1 are gets completed, from the diagram we can know that CPU release the transaction T1, release the T1 and perform the context switching. As you know, context switching, hopefully you will know what is context switching. It is covered in the operating system subject. Context switching means CPU currently executing transaction T1. Now then CPU release the transaction T1 means all the state of transaction are stored in the PCB. No need to worry, you can go through the context switching operating system, you will get to know. So again I am repeating, once that CPU release the T1, at that point of time CPU store all the state of transaction T1 to the data structure called process control block, and then CPU really move to the transaction T2. Say at the time of T2 time, at the time of T2, CPU start executing transaction T2. And the important point is that what we have said, that CPU are executing multiple transactions concurrently, but in reality, physically CPU executes only one transaction at a point of time. But CPU switches among the transactions so fast, it it appears to the user that CPU executing all the transaction concurrently. Again I am repeating, CPU actually in reality executes one transaction at a time, but it switches among the transactions so fast it appears to the user that CPU are executing all the transactions at the same point of time, but actually in reality it executes 1.1 at a time. So CPU now move to the transaction T2, means CPU is not waiting for the transaction T1 to complete its execution. CPU move to the another transaction T2. So next CPU execute all these 4 instruction of CPU. Execute all these 4 instruction of the transaction T2, and then after executing these 4 instruction of T2, CPU again perform the context switch. Context switch means the state of transaction T2 at that point of time are saved in PCB, process control block, and release the transaction T2, and then CPU again go back to the transaction T1. Suppose at the point of T3 time, at the time T3, now CPU again back to the transaction T1. Then again CPU execute the last 3 instruction of T1. So transaction T1 gets completed, and then again CPU again back to the transaction T2. Now CPU will back to the transaction T2 where? From where it has left. So already write a operation up to that point of time, these 4 instructions are already have been executed. So from when CPU will back to the transaction T2, what happen? CPU will read the process control block PCB. Actually PCB stores from where up to the which point T2 has been executed. So by reading the PCB content, CPU will understand from where it should start execution. So come back over here, reads the PCB and start rest of the instruction of T2. So that is how CPU perform the context switching. CPU perform the execution of multiple transactions simultaneously, and this is known as concurrent schedule. And if you look at the concurrent schedule, then all the instruction of a particular transaction are not appearing together, rather it's discrete manner. The first part is this part is the instruction from T1, then this part is belongs to T2, then this part belongs to T1, again this part belongs to T2. So the instruction of a particular transaction are not contiguous manner, rather they are discrete manner. And another important point is that this schedule is equivalent to schedule 1. Schedule 1 means I want to mean the previous schedule what I have discussed. Now what is term equivalent? No need to bother at that point of time. I will discuss the concept of equivalent schedule in the next lecture. And these are the references you may go to for further details.